I'm very good. Thank you so much for joining me. Cheryl Payne is the CEO of the Resilience Group. So I'm really glad that you could spend some time with me today. When we met back in 2003, your executive coaching business was already well established and on a trajectory to achieve really great things. Fast forward to 2020, and what does executive coaching look like today?
Well, executive coaching has come a long way. Back in 2003, people had just stopped asking us what executive coaching was. We started our business in 1998 and we were quite novel. So by the time we got to 2003, we built up an executive coaching team using a well-established model. The good thing about now is the benefits of coaching are more well known. There are a lot of executive coaches out there, so sometimes I think people are confronted with a lot of choice. And fortunately, our reputation, carries us a long way. So, but I think, it might be becoming a little increasingly hard to know who to choose. And so I think that would at times be something we could help our clients with, because it is, the quality varies.
I imagine, as it does with recruiters.
With everything, yes, it does. Yeah.
When you're at the top, whether you run your own business or you're a C-level executive, I imagine it's hard for some to share their true concerns about a myriad of challenges. How does an executive coach like yourself help them to find out what's important? How do you help them find that quiet space to focus, and to overcome those challenges?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, because it is one of the key things we work with. It's quite lonely at the top, some people would say. It's not always easy to be able to be openly sharing what it is that you do that works not as well as you might like. And sometimes you are not even aware that there is a better way. It really depends on whether or not you're challenged to look at what it is that you're doing and to really look and see whether or not you are getting the results that you want. Because there's a bit of a phenomenon in senior executive land of busyness, and it doesn't always equate to effectiveness. So as an executive coach, we provide a safe space where people can actually get stretched by a neutral person. They know I'm on their side. They know that I have their future in mind. I'm not really that concerned about what went in the past, because anything new is going to be conducted into the future. And so people find it easy to open up because they're in a safe space. I go to a lot of trouble to make sure they feel safe, but challenged. And when you're at the top, it's actually at times hard to find someone to challenge you.
And it's also really hard to get someone to challenge your ideas. You don't want to be surrounded by yes people when you're at the top. You want people that, will listen to your idea and then absolutely challenge it. And you're right, if you don't have someone to do that, who do you turn to?
Yeah, well, you really need to pick your advisors or pick the people who challenge you, because they're doing you a great favour if they know how to get to the bottom of the issues that you're dealing with. And it's not normally done by your executive. You may have a mentor or someone that, like a board, that you can talk things through. But the whole dynamic is different. The expectations that I would have for for my clients is nothing like the expectations that their board would have or their executive would have towards them. So it's a completely different dynamic, and one that I actually, often notice that people walk away from a coaching session quite relieved that they're able to discuss things that they should know, if you like, and they can discuss things that are not working, but they should work, and at the same time accept being challenged.
So what's the one piece of advice that you could give an executive to ensure that they can turn their ideas into a reality then?
Yeah. The biggest obligation, in my mind, that a leader has is to become an expert at building crack teams.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes to learn the communication skills, to learn the evaluation skills that you need to develop teams that are better than you, because you can achieve much more. It's obvious, it's really obvious when I say this, that you can achieve more with a team than you can on your own. But if I had to say what the biggest problem was, is people tolerate not having a leadership philosophy that says my job is to create the best team I possibly can, not be the smartest person in the room, but to have be surrounded by a lot of smart people. The people who do that are able to solve the implementation problems because, strategically, strategic thinking is what leaders are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be seeing things from, a much bigger viewpoint and not be down in the weeds. Sometimes they're under the weeds, doing other people's jobs and job sharing. So the concept of job sharing is one that resonates with a lot of people I coach. It's something that I call the tyranny of competency. If you're really competent, the biggest thing you need to learn is to teach the competency and not do it. And so, I coined a few phrases by, just don't job share. Learn how to know when you're job sharing. And it resonates. Understand which way the business problems should flow. They should flow down, not up to you. There wouldn't be a leader I've worked with who in the beginning of our working together did not have the problems flowing the wrong way. The great thing about a really, really great leader is they love hearing this because it's a mystery to them most of the time and they're a bit on automatic, and when they learn it, they're able to fix it and recalibrate. So that's why, I'm extremely lucky to work with the people I work with. It's exciting to see how quickly they get things and how quickly they can change.
I know when I've been on the receiving end of your coaching that everything that you've just spoken about right now is always where we start. Why is it that even though we know this, either because we've been through your coaching program or we've been told it from why do we fall back into those habits time and time again?
Well, if you're falling back, then you didn't get it, I have to say. Because you haven't got, once you get it, you're free. Once you absolutely understand how that works, you can become more productive, more strategic, and more successful. Because the thing about, I'm not just talking about delegating. I'm talking about giving people that work for you the opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
Now, you're depriving them of that if you do their job. And so you need to embed that in your heart, really, because at the end of the day, you're the leader. They're going to follow what you do, whether, you might get the outlier every now and then, but generally a team will look like its leader. So it's really up to you to have the discipline to remember that. And if you do it enough, you get the benefit and it'll become second nature.
And, you know, everyone loves that aha moment. And is it common for those moments to be really obvious when they happen, or are they more often than not left of center where the person just isn't looking?
The best way for me to answer that is you basically are what you think. If your mind is occupied with things that you probably really shouldn't occupy your mind with, if you're not choosy enough about the problems you solve, you won't actually have as many of those creative aha moments than you could. To contemplate and to be quiet and to think is the biggest gift a leader can give themselves. So when I'm coaching someone, we always orchestrate it so that after the session, as much as they're dying to pick up their phone or get onto their computer, we orchestrate it so they can't, or they commit to not doing that because they need time to process. They need time to actually start to think about implementing ideas. So it becomes a discipline. I think the thing about leadership that people don't realise is it's a discipline. It's something you need to learn. I don't know if there are so many, there are people who are born to want to be a leader, but there is so much to learn.
There is so much to learn, and it's certainly not for everybody.
Well, I guess it's leadership of organisations, but one of the concepts that I find quite interesting is that people lead all the time. They lead their own processes. They lead their emotions. They manage themselves, and that's something that we can be responsible for. They lead their results. And so whilst you might not look like the leader on an org chart, you are the leader of yourself. And it's one of the really interesting areas that I work with my clients is to help them develop their leadership philosophy. Everyone has one, but it's just probably not that obvious. It needs to be clarified, and that really releases a lot of thinking about, what will they always do because they know it gives them the results they want.
And how does change play out? I think I personally thrive in a forever changing environment, but I've certainly come across, executives and other business owners that are literally paralyzed in the now, or it looks like that to someone like me, that they're paralyzed in the now. Why is change so much harder for some other people?
Well, sometimes being able to change depends on your ability to confront your comfort zone. We can become very comfortable in our fixed ideas because it's not completely illogical. These things work. Once again, I'm, pointing to the idea that you need time to think. So if you can think your way into change. You can reassure yourself that you can do it. But if all you do is someone else's job and you don't do yours, and on every position description for anyone, it should have time to think, because that's where the ability to change comes from. The ability, because sometimes change as an idea is scary until you really think about it. So coaching is an ideal place for people to think about those scary things.
I know as I was developing my career, I would often have, you have very high expectations thrown at me as a negative. And whenever I received that, I never ever received it as a negative, even though I know that's how it was meant to be delivered. But what are the blind spots that high achievers have, you know, particularly when they go into those leadership roles, that causes perhaps communication or other problems?
I think sometimes leaders can believe what they're told
Right.
without taking the time to question. That takes time. I don't think I would advocate just challenging everybody's ideas, but you need to have time to evaluate. So someone may say that, as you said, you know, that your standards are too high, or they may, you know, disagree because of their comfort zone. But unless you give yourself the time to think about it, well, is that real, or is that really just coming from their capability? And give yourself time to react, and, you know, in a considered way. Yeah, and really, it's never ending, the things that you can do and learn as a leader. The world is always going to change. Everything's changed. We all know that. Look at this, look at 2020. And, you know, I have to say that one of the things that has been really heartening for me is how well the people I've worked with have been able to deal with this change. They've remained in business. In fact, most of them have thrived. And I put that down to having time to think. If they can get off Zoom, you know, so if they can pace themselves.
I think that's one of the gifts that lockdown has given, you know, many of us, is that the time to think and to reflect and to make some big choices. I think when I meet people who are fortunate enough to be doing something that they find really meaningful, that makes their heart sing, in your experience, if somebody is a high achiever, what is the road for them when they tell you that they want more meaning in their lives?
You know, often people who are lit up about what they're doing have a very clear idea of what their purpose is and why they're doing it. One of the exercises that I do with my clients is I really get them to try and understand what is the purpose of what they're doing every day. And they'll start reading me the purpose statement or the mission statement. But what I'm really after is finding out, why do they exist in this role? And it's not in the mission statement. It's what's there for them. And so once they attach to that, it's it's quite freeing, and they are energized by that. So helping people find out, are they in the right spot? Is this the purpose for them? Can they get what they need from what they're doing now? And if not, what should they do?
And so in your opinion then, why is investing in oneself so important? Why is it that, you know, taking the time to review your own personal and business goals, you know, it's courageous and, you know, thoroughly worth it when you've been through it. But, you know, in your opinion, why is it so important to do that investment?
Well, it might go back to one of the very first questions that I ask my clients. And I say to them, how old are you going to be when you die? And most people are quite shocked. They say, I don't know. And I'll say, well, just take a guess. How old would you like to be? And so that starts a conversation about, when you are on your deathbed, imagine that you're lucky enough to know that. Who's going to be around you? And what are they going to say to you? And people will talk about that in a very emotional way. Because you know what, we only have one life, and we are all going to be, hopefully, on our deathbed conscious and be able to talk to the people we've loved. And so the reason to find, you know, to develop yourself is so that on that deathbed, you're talking about what you want to talk about. Not that the world took you somewhere you didn't want to go, but that you were there and you had time for the important things. Because eventually what people realise is the important things are those that love them. And so you need to know, to make time for that in your life so that life fits in with you and not you get buffeted around. So having a very long view is how people that I work with get to work out what to do today.
It's incredibly, I'm sitting here and my heart I feel a little bit of anxiety and excitement and all of those things. And I imagine that is how your clients feel all of the time. And as you said, that little feeling of, oh my goodness, is the challenge. And then the excitement is that relief that you're going to feel at the end when you have a clear plan.
Yeah, and people will often cry when I get them to talk about who will be around their bed. Yeah. Because sometimes if they keep behaving the way they do today, those people may not be there. And it's a huge wake up. And at the end of the day, becoming a really effective leader means that you have more time to spend with. I've never, ever had anybody. The other question I ask is, who will you invite to stand around your bed? And no one's ever said they're inviting the people from work. But they, unless they've become a really good friend. So, I encourage people to have that love and connection in their life and make time for that. They need to, be really good at what they do so they have choice. And, they can look forward to the deathbed because they'll know, it is one of the most, no one sees it coming. They don't know I'm going to ask these questions. They don't know the impact it has, but I would say it's almost the most profound conversation I have with my clients. It leads to everything. It leads to the motivation to push through. And they always refer to it.
I hear that. Cheryl, whenever I spend time with you, I feel so inspired.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today. Before we finish up, what's the one piece of advice that you could give somebody that was considering taking on an executive coach?
I would say you go to the dentist, you go to the doctor, you go to the gym, and they're all really important things. I would say consider having a neutral person in your life as essential as that. If you want to reach your capacity for leadership, and if you want to enhance your ability to get what you want, so that deathbed seems looking like you want it, get help. And it's a partnership. It's not psychology. It's kind of, I would say, people feel pretty stretched, but, they cope.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you, Vivian.
I'll see you soon.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.